Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Yes, we are winning on this fine Tuesday. Hope you all are doing amazing and outstanding on this fine day. My name is Niki Martinez. My pronouns are she, her, we. This is Victorious Voices. We are coming to you live today. Thank you so much for joining us. And how you doing?
Hello. My name is Arthur Soriano. My pronouns are he, him, his. Victorious Voices.
Yes, victorious voices on this fine Tuesday. So you all know I want to start out with a quote, as I always do. We have an amazing topic today. We're going to cover a different. I guess it's kind of like a different kind of spin. So you're welcome for that in advance. What we're bringing it. But as I was thinking about things, I was thinking about, when we're talking about causative factors and we're talking about the root of things, right? And the challenges and the different things that we've gone through. We do so much trainings with ACEs and talking about trauma and the things that we experience and understanding the root of things, right? So I wanted to start out with this quote. I feel like it might just kind of help us set the tone and then also keep us motivated and looking into a direction of healing and comfort. So try to look at the painful moments in life as giving you strength rather than taking it from you. Embrace the pain and then release it. Learn from it and then move on from it. Don't continue to dwell on it or carry it around with you, or you will never fully heal from it. Pain is a part of life, and the challenge is to break through. And I think that I always talk about the different adversities that we've gone through, as being formerly incarcerated individuals, being system impacted. Ultimately, I always think of what led us to be that person, that human being, right? That ultimately society believed that it was okay to sentence to a cell, and how does that get rooted and how does that manifest? And we become so comfortable in our skin being those individuals, and we discussed this last week about causative factors, and it had came up about causative factors and how relevant they are, so what do you think about that, boss?
Well, with that quote is like we heal from it, but don't dwell on it, right? And like we have sometimes a way of healing, but then sometimes because our system induced trauma or things that we've experienced, that it comes back. That doesn't mean that we're dwelling on it, but it has a way of coming back. Still to this day, when I present, do trainings, and I'll see a cell of Pelican Bay or a prison cell, like it'll take me instantly right back.
Yeah.
Because that's that system induced trauma, right? That's something that I've experienced. So for me, it's still a continuous process, and the more I talk about it, the more I engage with it, the more that I heal from it. So, the causative factors, what are causative factors that contribute to lifestyles or individual becoming gang members? Like, individuals didn't wake up one day and say, you know what, I didn't want a dad or mom or living in poverty. They didn't wake up in the morning and say, this is how I'm going to live this life. Like, the life was brought to them with their situation, their circumstances. So a causative factor that, hurts all communities is absent parents, whether there's no male figure in the house uh, or there maybe no period, no parents period. What does that lead to, right? The individual feeling abandonment, no home, no stability. That's big in underserved communities. Another factor is poverty. You grow up in a home where there's poverty, mama, daddy can't buy you shoes, clothes. How would you feel if you were one of them kids going to a school wearing shoes with holes on them, right? How would that affect that person?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like it doesn't just come from that. So then you think of the child going to the school and being made fun of, being ostracized, feeling like they're not good enough, feeling like they're not even valued enough to receive the basic necessities, those senses of not belonging, the senses of feeling, and then sometimes having the the belief that because of that, because that's lacking, then I'm unloved, right? Seeing what, and then we start comparing. This person has this, my friend has this, I don't have that, so therefore I can't be loved as much as them. And it becomes our innate nature, which creates those unfortunate defects that has us functioning in society at such a young age due to these causative factors, and how we're not emotionally literate to understand that that's not accurate. Where we're raised in communities where we're not taught how to communicate how we feel because we don't understand how we feel, and then ultimately that creates that feeling of um altered, like an altered, you alter our very core existence, and then we choose to function from that space.
And it could be a combination of all sorts of causative factors, like poverty, absent parents in the homes, addiction, right? Which addiction leads to relief. It could be not only system induced trauma from like what I explained, but just different systems coming in and feeling that, making that family feel undeserved,
Yep.
right? Like it could be not trusting in systems, whether it's schools, police department, systems that are in place that, affect the well-being of the family dynamic. So it could just be a list of different causative factors that contributes to that person's success,
Yeah.
success. And I was listening to a motivational video the other day, and it said, what's success and what's unsuccessful?
Mhm.
What does that mean? Right? What does that mean for an individual? And I loved his perspective. It was, success means when someone puts a goal together
Mhm.
and they achieve that goal. Whether it's small, a career, some people just they want to live and be the best janitor in the world, and that makes them happy. They put a goal together, they achieved it. That's success. Unsuccessful is when you have no goals, period, and you can't achieve, whether they're big, small, it doesn't matter the measure of the goal, but putting a goal in place so you could then achieve it is deemed somewhat successful, right? And so our underserved community, we need to be put in positions where we're aware of what our causative factors are, right? All the different traumas that we've been a part of. So then when we get to the feeling part, right? Then we could handle our emotions, control our emotions so that it doesn't lead us into a route of addiction, incarceration, destruction. And so we were having a conversation the other day, and one of the biggest feelings that you know the causative factor with the feelings that contribute to that is fear.
Absolutely.
And fear is a word that no one likes to use because of pride, of you're going to look at me different.
Right.
It could be a fear of living in poverty. It could be a fear of not having the right friends. It could be a fear of being bullied. It could be a fear. It just, the list goes on and on and on with fear.
Mhm.
What's your perspective on fear, Niki?
Well, I like how I listen to Sirius, and it says fear everything and rise, or fear everything and run. Right? You could fear everything and rise, or you could fear everything and run. And I feel like with fear, it can be a powerful motivator, but it can also just break you down at the knees, at the core, right? And a lot of times I agree. We have a lot of ego, we have a pride attached to admitting to what fear looks like, right? And I think sometimes a lot of us have a tendency of focusing and functioning from a place that's so superficial that we don't even understand that fear is a primary motivator for us, or a primary existent emotion for us, right? So when when you walk into a room and you want to have a tendency of saying, well, I'm not very social, so I don't talk to people, I'm an introvert or whatever. Well, a lot of times that comes from fear of rejection, right? Nobody wants to feel rejected. So there's all of these different things that contribute, and they exasperate the feeling of fear, right? And like you were saying, fear of being bullied, right? Fear of, but the bigger ones are always, the most powerful motivators are always fear of not fitting in, fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of feeling unloved. So not taking an opportunity to cross that threshold out of fear, right?
Out of fear.
Out of fear.
Like when I went through juvenile hall, I was afraid to go inside juvenile hall when I first went in. Then I built some resistance, right?
Mhm.
Like I started getting comfortable with my environment. I started fighting. I started building a reputation because my sense of belonging, right? And then come 18 years of age, I come to the big house as an adult. I was full of fear.
Mhm.
But ain't no one in prison or jail talking about fear.
Yeah,
They're afraid to admit that.
right.
I was afraid of the courtrooms. I was afraid of the sentencing. I was afraid of like, where am I going to next? And then the fear contributed to my mother too. She thought she could hire security guards to come in and be there for me
Right.
because of her fear
Right.
of the position that I was in.
Right.
So yes, I totally believe that fear is like one of the main roots, and then all the other feelings that go with that.
Yeah, and even going back to fear. And so like when we're talking about causative factors, right? And we're talking about poverty, we're talking about system induced trauma, we're talking about all of these different relevant things, right? So you think of why people make the choices that they do that ultimately lead to crime, that lead to incarceration, that lead to addiction. And the majority of the time it's functioning from a place of survival. And I say that so often because there's a fear there. There's a fear of being without. There's a fear of going hungry. There's a fear of not being man enough, not being the man of the house for your mother, right?
Mm.
Doing the things that the fear of disappointment. And that could be disappointment of your family, disappointment of your peers. What a fear of disappointing somebody is a very strong motivator, right? So you have a tendency of going above and beyond to make sure that you don't feel that disappointment. Nobody wants to feel those feelings, and I think that that's where we come in so graciously when we're talking about our trauma informed care code of conduct, because we're talking about all of these things and having that understanding of where the root of it is. Because once we understand the root of it, then we can function from a level of compassion and be able to deliver that message to others so that they don't treat people that are system impacted, that have all of these causative factors, that are maybe not making the most healthiest, wisest decisions right now for their life, and having them work with them in a way that shows them a little bit more compassion and a little bit more empathy from a humanistic standpoint instead of a punitive standpoint, and making somebody feel more shameful, feeling more rejected, feeling more dissension. Like nobody wants to feel that way. And I think that's one of the biggest things. It's like we're in a society to where it's punitive is important. Of course, people want people to understand, that there needs to be consequences for their actions. But I think I love what we do so much because we're in these restorative practice arenas where we're talking about giving understanding to the harm and also rectifying it in a way that's more meaningful, that's more impactful, that's going to be more promising in future for the next steps and the next choices for individuals, so that there's preventative measures in place.
And as an organization, as a system, just being educated and aware of all these causative factors
Yeah.
is valuable for yourself, for your line of work that you do. In order to work with the individuals, youth, and you need to understand the youth, individuals, and families. So fear could be the root, but then you have boredom, you have resentment, and you have anger, right? Like those are like four big feelings.
But I always say when it comes to anger is God bless you. I always say that anger is really it's an easy thing. Anger is easy for all of us, right? But when we think about what makes us angry, when we get our feelings hurt, when we get disregarded, when we get rejected, when we feel like we're not enough, when we feel unworthy, those are the things. I used to think like, what was this thing that would always make me want to fight while I was in there? Like, what's the one thing that would send me spiraling? Nobody wants to be embarrassed, especially if you already got that thug life mentality. You know what I mean? And then I would always say, "Whoa, I'm angry because they pissed me off." And no, it was because when I started looking at it within myself, it was like, oh, I was embarrassed. I was jealous. I was insecure. I was upset because I had my feelings hurt, because I felt disregarded. Like all of those emotions ultimately are what culminate and make the anger more relevant. And that's where, and then, where we end up having a problem at is because then we start conditioning that anger. And then ultimately it turns into from a place of survival and a place of anger. Then it turns into rage. And then it turns into that's our normal way of functioning.
So how did you start working on yourself? Because you were a kid full of anger, right? And because I remember you telling me stories about like you thought everybody was like you had to go in there, prove yourself, like you're gonna be the Billy bad,
Mhm.
right, Nikki, and right because this is who you are. And
Mhm.
so, how did you work on that process?
I just really started understanding the emotional component of it. I started really taking a look at where my insecurities, where my hurt was rooted in, where my pain was rooted in, and then I started figuring out why I acted the way that I did, why my react and don't get me wrong, I have nothing figured out. You know what I mean? I'm still a work in progress. I want to get to the point to where I can graciously respond to things no matter how I'm feeling, right? I'm not there. I still react a lot of times. You know what I mean? And I try to condition that. I'm trying to work on that as best as I possibly can. There's still certain things where I'm reactive and I don't want to be that way. But I also realized that there was a lot of things that I endured that were causative factors growing up for me as a child. And it was my own distorted belief and perception on certain things that had me believing that this was my truth. And really, it wasn't. And it was not until I stepped out of a state of denial and I started looking at it for what it really was. And then I started being accountable for my own stuff. No, it wasn't my mom's fault. No, it wasn't my dad's fault. No, it wasn't the system's fault. No, it wasn't this person's fault. It wasn't my aunt's fault. It wasn't my cousin's fault. No, it was my fault because I chose to internalize it and believe it that way. And it might not have had anything to do with me. And I think that was the biggest thing for me. That was the biggest awareness for me.
Wow. And see, you had a good 10 years, 10 like where you consistently focused on that, like day
Daily.
in,
That's all I
day
breathe.
out.
I miss that so much. I was telling somebody that's formerly incarcerated the other day, I miss that so much. Like every single day, about 11 hours out of the day, I was having meaningful, in-depth, I mean, just purposeful conversations about deep-rooted traumas, about healing, meaningful conversations all day long, and I really, really, really miss that. I really do.
And we need to find a way how to bring that up back,
Yes.
right? And have a group where we got real life conversations, no judgment, no being ashamed, like just everyone sharing what they need to share out
Yep.
because that's important. So you were trained, your mind was like, so now coming into the real world, like we need to find that back.
Yeah.
And we also, for us, lived experience, we need to keep the maintenance component of it.
Yes.
And that's the maintenance,
Yeah.
right? Because we need to keep this going for ourselves
Yeah.
and grow as an individual and as a person.
Mhm. Yeah, it's so important for us to understand our causative factors. And like you said, I was gracious enough to get the last 10 years of really working on myself because I was tired of being miserable. I was tired of being angry. I was tired of hating myself and everybody else. And I was tired of causing so much harm to other people that didn't have it coming. And I realized that the only way I was going to do that is if I started looking at myself first. And so I did, and as depressed as I got, as miserable as I became, as much as I had hated myself for so many different things. I had to work through that, but I also had to, yet admittance is key. You got to admit it first. You can't just walk around oblivious and in denial because it's not going to help the situation. It's not going to help us.
Yeah, thank you, Nikki. So for the community, see what are the causative factors in your life that has contributed to lifestyles that you're a part of, and there's nothing wrong with it. Just there's understanding to it. Do some education, some reading, your feelings, see what feelings contribute to your causative factors and have a good understanding of why your anger, right? Why your fear, why your resentment, why your boredom, because that's important for your life so you could have healthy lifestyle. So thank you, Nikki.
Yep.
Great conversation.
Thank you. I just want to and before we close out, I just, for people and folks that are not aware, I don't know if you all know what the ACEs is, the adverse childhood experiences. It is a survey, that's available. And a lot of times what we're able to understand is that children who experience negative and often traumatic situations, that can have that lasting impact on individuals. And then this is all the way up until the age of 18, so those are also causative factors. If you take that survey, then you kind of have a little bit more of an understanding on where it's rooted in, and it's kind of, it's based on a couple of different areas like abuse, neglect, and household experiences. That's kind of just the top 3, but it branches out into like 7 different arenas. And it's 10 questions. I don't advise anybody to take it if you're not emotionally okay and stable, like, definitely have somebody that you can trust and rely on. And, just it's something that's available, but do definitely be in a healthy space where you're able to do that, because it's definitely very, very personal questions. And doing trauma informed care code of conduct, like we want people to be trauma informed. We also want people to have an understanding of where it is that the root of their trauma is, right? Because when you can't help heal people if you're putting that off on other people, that was one of the biggest things. So with that being said, I just want to thank you all for showing up. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your love. Thank you for all that you all are doing in the community. Please continue to be amazing, be a blessing to yourself, to others. I want to, I'm going to close out with another quote. So you're welcome already for that. Life requires overcoming challenges and obstacles of many types. Battling our struggles and fears determines who we are. Bam. That's by, I can't never say people's names. So I apologize for not quoting everybody today. That's just how it's going. For some reason, I just cannot say names. But before we end it out, I want to remind everybody about our future event. It's up and coming, our fundraiser on June 4th, 2022. Look at me getting my 2s right today. I love that for us. So our HEAL event honoring empowerment, advocacy, and leadership. As you all know, our amazing friend and one of our bros is Pastor. I got Pastor on my mind. Love you, Pastor. Chef Jeff is going to be there. He's one of the best-selling authors. He was on Oprah Winfrey. He's an amazing inspirational speaker. Let this man be in this. You all need to sit in this man's presence so he can deposit some greatness into your world and into your lives. He's phenomenal at what he does. I read his book while I was inside. It was cooked. My mom sent it to me. Thanks, Mom. I appreciate that very much. He'll be there with us celebrating everything, and we will have our youth that we've worked with throughout the years, people that Arthur has brought up from the community that has turned in and helped transition them into being trained leaders and trainers today. They are going to be present. They are going to be there doing everything that they're doing and sharing their testimonies, and we'll have awards, and we'll be breaking bread, and we'll do a little dance. Huh, boss? You're pumped about the dancing?
Oh, yeah. Like, so if you see your messengers, Facebook, Instagram, emails, the next month and a half all blowed up.
Yeah, we're blowing you all up.
It's for a reason.
Yes.
You didn't get hacked, right? This is legit. Hey, we'll send links where you could buy your tickets. Yes. Buy your tickets now. We have a amazing website that was touched up by Alexis, Trisha.
Check it out.
It's banging. It looks beautiful. So if you log on to the website, you could buy live tickets now. So you're going to get blowed up. Fair warning. Right now. Just letting you guys know that. Okay.
We have raffles. It's going to be an amazing night. It's going to be an amazing event. So just come celebrate with us. Come break bread. Get your tickets. They're online now. Like he said, you can buy them. So just come see about us. Come spend time with us and sit in the presence of a lot of great human beings doing a lot of great work for a community that they love. So hope to see you there. Hope you all buy your tickets. And thank you so much.